Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're looking at a giant in the payments world, Visa. And the big question really, is Visa a good buy right now? Is this the time to get in or maybe add to a position?
That's the core question. We've pulled together a lot of information, their latest financials, what analysts are saying, the technical charts.
Right, the whole picture. And
Yeah.
our job here is to try and make sense of it all, give you a clear view on what's actually happening with Visa's stock.
Exactly. Cut through the noise, figure out the key drivers, where they stand competitively, and importantly, what's coming up, say, in the next 3 months or so.
Okay, absolutely. But hey, before we jump into all that, and you'll definitely want to hear about the stablecoin thing they're doing, just a quick reminder, we really do build these analyses based on what you're interested in. So please take a second to subscribe, maybe like this, leave a comment. And yeah, definitely, if there's another company you want us to cover, just drop it in the comments below. We do read those. Okay, let's get started. Fundamentals first, I guess. Because Visa's recent numbers, they weren't exactly boring, were they? Q3 results back in August. Big beat.
Oh, yeah, it was really solid. They didn't just meet expectations. They comfortably beat them. Reported, what was it, $2.98 EPS on a non-GAAP basis.
And that non-GAAP figure is key, right? Because it shows the core operational strength.
Exactly. It strips out the one-offs, gives you a cleaner look at how the actual business is performing day to day, and it confirms, yeah, the core engine is running really well.
So $2.98 EPS. And wasn't revenue growth pretty strong, too? Like 14% year over year, up to around $10.2 billion for the quarter?
That's right. Between 14 and 14.3%, landing around $10.17 to $10.2 billion, which, I mean, for a company of Visa's size, sustaining that kind of growth is, well, it's pretty remarkable.
Where is that coming from mainly? Just more people using cards everywhere.
Yeah, largely driven by that ongoing shift to digital payments globally. And, the thing is, there's still runway there, especially if you look at emerging markets. It's not tapped out yet.
And looking ahead, the full year, fiscal 2025.
Yeah.
Analysts still feeling positive.
Consensus estimates are pointing towards continued growth. Yeah. They're projecting revenue around $40.3 billion and EPS maybe $11.56 for the full fiscal year. So the momentum looks set to continue.
Okay, so top line looks good, bottom line looks good. But what about the underlying financial health? The balance sheet, cash flow.
Yeah.
That's what really supports a long-term view.
Absolutely. And Visa's balance sheet is, well, it's classic strength, very low debt, which gives them a ton of flexibility. But the real star, arguably, is the free cash flow. It's just incredibly strong, and are not just sitting on it. They're using it strategically, funding growth projects, buying back shares pretty aggressively.
Which helps shareholders directly.
Right, and paying out dividends, all those things. They signal that management is really confident about the future. Bullish signals, basically.
Makes sense. And we saw the market kind of reflecting that too, didn't we? Market cap ticked up a bit from August to October, maybe $640 billion to around $672 billion.
Yeah, a steady climb. Seems like the market is generally agreeing with that positive financial picture.
Okay, so the financials are solid, maybe even bulletproof, like you said. But, in payments, technology moves fast. You can't just rely on past performance. Where's the next bit of growth coming from? What's Visa doing to make sure they don't get, disrupted?
That's the key question, isn't it? And this is where their strategy gets really interesting. You mentioned the stablecoin pilot earlier. That's a big piece of it. Announced back in September. Basically, they started this pilot program using a stablecoin on their network. The idea is to make transactions potentially faster, maybe cheaper, more flexible.
Okay. But stablecoins, isn't that still a bit niche? Why does that matter so much for a giant like Visa? We already have pretty fast payments.
Well, yeah, payments are fast, but think about the underlying rails. This move isn't just about, tinkering with crypto. It's about Visa potentially controlling the infrastructure for how value moves, even if it's decentralized value. And the speculation, the sort of so what here, is that if this kind of settlement layer gets adopted widely, it could actually lower Visa's own transaction costs quite a bit.
Ah, okay. So it boosts their own efficiency, their earnings.
Potentially, yeah. And maybe even more importantly, it helps lock in their position as the essential network, no matter what kind of digital currency people are using. It strengthens that competitive moat.
Right, the moat. Let's talk about that. Because if the strategy involves defending their position, we need to understand what makes them so hard to compete with in the first place.
It really comes down to the network effect. I mean, think about it. Visa is just everywhere. Billions of cards, millions of merchants accepted globally. Building something like that from scratch today, it's almost impossible.
The cost, the regulations, getting everyone on board.
Exactly. They have this dominant position. It's not just the brand, though that's strong. It's the sheer scale of the network, the loyalty from banks, merchants, consumers. It's a massive barrier to entry.
And they're not just sitting back. You mentioned AI, digital solutions.
Right. They're constantly investing to keep that edge, to improve the network, add new services. They know they can't stand still.
Speaking of keeping things moving, they added Bill Reddy to the board recently, right? End of September. Any significance there?
Yeah, that's interesting. Reddy has a strong background in digital commerce, payments tech, places like Google and PayPal. Bringing him onto the board, it kind of signals Visa is serious about staying ahead on the tech front, focusing on innovation and agility.
So doubling down on the tech and digital side of things.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, strategy seems forward-looking. Let's pivot to the near term, the next, say, 3 months. What specific events or catalysts should investors be watching that could actually move the stock price?
Well, the big one coming up very soon is the Q4 earnings report that's scheduled for October 28th.
Ah, right. Always a big day. What are the expectations?
Analysts are looking for continued strength. The consensus seems to be around $2.97 per share for earnings, maybe $10.60 billion in revenue if they deliver another strong beat, especially after Q3.
Could definitely provide a boost.
Absolutely. That's probably the single most important near-term catalyst. But there are other things, too.
Like,
Well, in November, you've got a couple of market-related dates. November 1st is when some major ETF rebalancing happens. Visa's a huge component in many indexes, so flows from passive funds can actually move the needle.
okay, those index fund adjustments.
Yeah. And then November 15th, we get the holiday shopping report. That's always a key indicator for consumer spending, which is, the lifeblood of a payments network like Visa.
Gives a pulse check on the consumer. Got it. Anything else as we head towards year end?
December 1st, there's usually an update on institutional buying trends, which gives you a sense of whether the big money managers are still confident. And then, of course, just the general year-end reviews and outlooks on December 31st.
Okay, so a pretty packed calendar. How are the analysts reacting to all this? You mentioned positive sentiment earlier. Are we seeing target price increases?
Yeah, generally positive. We saw Macquarie, for instance, bump their target up quite a bit in October from $380 to $425, still rating it outperform.
Wow, $425 is pretty bullish.
It is. Truist Financial trimmed theirs slightly from $400 down to $397, but importantly, they kept their buy rating. So even with a minor adjustment, the underlying sentiment is still positive.
And where does the current price sit relative to those targets? Is there still upside according to the analysts?
Yeah, that's a good point. Last check, the share price was roughly maybe 12% below the average analyst target price. So on paper, at least, Wall Street sees potential for decent upside from here, assuming Visa hits those Q4 numbers.
All right, fundamentals check out. Strategy seems solid. Catalysts are on the horizon. What about the charts? Is the technical picture agreeing with this generally positive story? What's the stock price action telling us?
Yeah, the technicals are lining up pretty nicely with the fundamental story. You see a clear bullish trend. The stock's been making higher highs and higher lows. That generally indicates strong investor confidence.
And moving averages. Where's it trading relative to those key levels?
Comfortably above both the 50-day and the 200-day moving averages. The 50-day shows good short-term momentum, and being above the 200-day suggests the longer-term trend is healthy too.
Okay. Any other indicators, like RSI or MESID?
Yeah, looking at momentum indicators like RSI and MESID, they also show healthy bullish momentum. The RSI, for example, was recently around 63. That's strong, but it's not yet in that sort of overbought territory above 70 or 75.
So still potentially room to run before it gets overheated.
Exactly. It suggests there's solid buying interest, but maybe not excessive froth just yet.
Okay, so based on all that, and knowing the 52-week range is roughly $273 to $375, if this bullish trend holds, what kind of trading range might we expect over the next, say, 3 months?
Well, forecasting is always tricky, but based on the current momentum and trend lines, a potential bullish range over the next 3 months could be somewhere in the ballpark of, say, $320 on the lower end up to maybe $380 on the higher end.
Okay, $320 to $380. That brackets the current price nicely. But, we've been pretty positive here. Visa's been a strong performer for a long time, trades at high multiples.
Yeah.
Isn't there a risk that a lot of this good news is already baked into the price? What are the downsides we need to consider?
That's a very fair point. Quality costs money, right? And Visa definitely trades at a premium valuation. The key risks, I'd say, fall into a couple buckets. First, company-specific things. Regulatory scrutiny is always a potential headwind for any major financial player, especially one operating globally, and competition is
Right.
fierce.
Fintechs, other networks.
Exactly. The pace of innovation is rapid. Visa has to keep investing and adapting to stay ahead. Now, historically, management has done a pretty good job navigating these things through lobbying, strategic moves, acquisitions, but the risks are always there.
Okay, regulatory and competitive risks. What about just broader market stuff? If the whole economy tanks.
Yeah, of course, broader market risks exist for any stock. A recession would obviously impact consumer spending, which hits Visa's volumes. But what's interesting about Visa is that it has often shown more resilience than many other companies during downturns.
Kind of a flight to quality within the sector.
Sort of, yeah. It tends to outperform peers in turbulent times, partly because of its scale and essential nature. So while market risk is real, Visa might be a relatively safer way to play the payment space, even within a growth-oriented portfolio.
Okay. Before we wrap up, any speculative stuff? Rumors or whispers about things that could drive growth but aren't confirmed yet?
Oh.
Beyond the stablecoin pilot?
Well, there's always chatter. Two main themes seem to pop up. One is further integration of other cryptocurrencies beyond just stablecoins into their network. The idea being to attract new users, especially younger, digitally native ones.
Okay, deeper crypto integration. What's the other one?
The other is just continued, maybe even accelerated global expansion, particularly pushing harder into emerging markets where digital payment adoption is still relatively low compared to developed markets. Lots of potential market share to grab there.
Right, tapping into those less mature markets. Got it.
So let's try and pull all this together. We've got the strong financials, the strategic moves like stable coins, the positive technicals. When you weigh it all up, where do we land? I think our overall thesis here leans pretty strongly bullish. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably put it at an 8.
An 8 out of 10. Okay, that's quite confident. Just recap the main reasons for that rating.
Sure, it's really a combination of factors reinforcing each other. You've got that accelerating revenue, even on their huge base. You've got smart strategic moves, especially in tech like the stablecoin pilot, aimed at defending and extending their dominance. And you have the technical charts confirming investor confidence, plus those near-term catalysts like earnings. It looks attractive both for maybe shorter-term traders playing those catalysts and definitely for long-term investors looking for structural growth and that wide competitive moat.
Yeah, it feels like a case of a market leader that's still managing to innovate and kind of future-proof itself. Okay, as we finish up here, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. Here's a final thought for you. Given Visa's clear focus now on stablecoins, maybe other digital assets, trying to control those future payment rails, how much will government regulation around these new payment technologies ultimately shape Visa's long-term value?
That's a great question because that intersection of innovation, especially in fintech and crypto, and the inevitable regulatory response, that's going to be absolutely critical for Visa and really all the major payment players over the next decade.
Indeed, something to keep a close eye on. Well, thank you for joining us for this analysis of Visa. We hope breaking down the financial strategy and outlook helps you make more informed decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Until next time, happy investing.